So today was the Equestria Ride Pony Summit, a cultural exchange of over 50 cities throughout Equestria. All sorts of unique ponies and cultures and other creatures coming together to exchange what makes them unique and share and learn and grow from each other. A very fascinating event, but off to a rocky start. After a speech from the princesses, including Princess Twilight, about the day and the nature of the events that were going on, Princess Twilight, the one responsible for setting up today's meet and greet, went back to her chambers to catch up on some much needed sleep, leaving her insistent Spike in charge of keeping things around the castle quiet so she could get her rest and be energized bright and early for the beginning of the summit. At first, things seemed to start out pretty well. Spike spotted things that were making noise and could potentially disturb the princess, and he dealt with them, getting them to quiet down and move elsewhere, or to put off their activities until later that day. Then Spike started getting approached by various delegates asking for Princess Twilight's opinion on things. Not wanting to disturb her, Spike took it upon himself to answer the questions that the ponies had on their mind at the time. He seemed to be making pretty good judgment calls for most of the problems that arose, but occasionally one thing or another would backfire or blow up into his face. Eventually, unforeseen circumstances, partially on the fault of himself and partially on the fault of other ponies, led to major disasters happening, and a water main broke, flooding the convention hall and damaging the entire setup that was in there. Hooves were pointed and blame was passed around. Eventually, Spike came out and admitted that while he had allowed the power to go to his head and maybe made some bad decisions, he did have Twilight's best interest in mind. After the mess was cleaned up, the summit went off smoothly without a hitch, and we all got to learn something about the fascinating cultures of over 50 cities that were participating that day. The highlight of the evening, and also the picture of the week, was the unveiling of the new statue dedicated to friendship. A rather fragile piece of art, but still a very impressive one, as every citizen in Equestria participated in its construction and were able to build it together. And that's the important thing to take away from all this. When you work together, you will accomplish greatness. I think this could be the start of a very long and interesting series of summits by the royal princesses. I'm sure there's a lot more to learn about different cultures and other cities and far-off places of Equestria that are seldom explored. As far as Spike and his problems, things were eventually resolved, and overall it wasn't a very interesting story. Hard for me to say myself who to blame. The one who solved the problems or the ones who caused the problems in the first place. It's sort of a issue that is to be blamed on both parties, not just the blame all placed on one individual. Anyhow, I thank you for taking the time to listen.